Educator podcast, your place for personalized professional learning to go. Join me as I discuss educational topics that empower educators to take control and ownership of their own professional learning. I'm your host, Mel Vandevort. Empowered Educator and Digital PD for You have partnered together to bring you the Ignite Leadership Virtual Summit coming March 2021. This virtual summit will highlight leadership knowledge and wisdom of educational leaders. Submit your proposals now to be part of this event. A link to more information and the proposal form can be found in the show notes. We are proudly partnering with Wakelet and Pear Deck for this event. Hello, everyone. I have a super special treat for you today. Today, I am interviewing the first ever real-life guest on Empowered Educator. And as with everything I've done so far, this is a learning curve. So bear with me because it may not be perfect. Daphne McMenemy is an educator, author, and speaker. Her first book, Gracie, is about a young girl whose learning is brought to life when her teacher introduces her to coding and a new way of thinking. It's based on her personal experiences in the classroom. As a child and young adult, Daphne was focused on becoming an educator with purpose to improve the lives of her students and make an impact on their educational journey. As an educator for the past 15 years, she has created opportunities for children in her classroom to explore learning in innovative ways. Using STEM to engage children as young as kindergarten age in discovering learning through coding, she develops numeracy, literacy, and computational thinking skills through creative exploration. Her experience in the classroom has proven to support even the most hesitant learners in building confidence in their abilities and engaging in the learning process. Daphne is committed to building relationships, meeting students where they are, appreciating each individual, and finding opportunities to engage and motivate students in creative and innovative ways. Her newest venture allows her an extensive creative outlet as the managing director of Codebreaker Inc. Jealous, because Brian is so cool. So Daphne, I am so excited to have you on Empowered Educator as my very first ever guest. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So tell the few people out there that might not know where you live, where you currently reside.
So I am actually in Canada. I am in Ontario and I live in a town called Oakville, which is about 45 minutes west of Toronto. And I teach in a city called Brampton, which is about half an hour west of Toronto.
And I know absolutely nothing about Canada. I need to get out a map so I can know exactly where everything is. I've watched a few things that had taken place in Canada. I like a mystery show that takes place in Canada. And so I kind of know a little bit about Toronto, but just from that. And it's set like in the old days, like in the 1800s, I think. So, but welcome again. Super excited to have you. But we're going to do some fun stuff first. So first, tell me something quirky about yourself.
Quirky. Oh dear. That just defines exactly who I am. I just am quirky. I just am. Oh dear. Quirky. Honestly, that's, I don't know if I can pick just one thing. I just sort of am. That's just
You're
me.
just quirky, huh?
Yeah. I kind of march to the beat of my own drum. And that's just sort of me.
And that's okay. That's okay. And sometimes quirky is, it's very interesting to be a quirky kid. Like one of my students I had a long time ago, he had a very, very high IQ and he was just the quirkiest thing ever. And I just love that kid because he was just quirky and he didn't care. And he was oblivious to anything the other kids thought he was quirky about. So
amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to play a couple of rounds of Would You Rather.
All right, I'm ready.
All right. So would you rather give up your computer or give up your pet?
Oh God.
Do you have a pet? I hope you
I do.
What kind of pet do you have?
Oh, we have three. We have a cat, we have a dog, and we have a tortoise.
Oh, okay.
Oh God, no, I'd have to say I'd have to give up the computer. I do like the pets quite a bit.
I understand. It would be hard for me to give up mine too. I have dogs, cats, and reptiles also. I have a bearded dragon though, so. All right. So would you rather have X-ray vision or bionic hearing?
X-ray vision or bionic hearing? I think I'd go with vision. I don't know that I want to hear everything everybody has to say.
Yeah,
I think I'd want vision. I have terrible vision as it is, so I think bionic vision might just get me back to where I should be.
Yeah, and like you said, hearing everything that everybody has to say. Sometimes you don't want to be privy to conversations that you're not meant to be privy to. So, all right. So number 3, would you rather meet an alien visitor or travel to outer space?
Oh, I'd like to travel to outer space.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm a big NASA nerd.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool to travel out there and see what's out there. So, all right. So we're going to move into the educational part of our time together. So what is your current position in the educational realm? What is your job?
I am a teacher. I've been a teacher for the past 15 years. This year, I am teaching grade 1 and 2. In the area where I'm teaching, we have what we call split grades, which essentially means I have 2 grades in the same classroom. So I'm teaching 2 different curriculums at the same time. I spent the last 3 years before this year in kindergarten, which is where my heart is, really, to be honest. My heart is in early primary education, so in the K1 space. Before that, I spent about 6 years back and forth between grade 1 and 2, and the prior 5 between grades 2 and 3, and a little bit of grade 4. So I've spent most of my career in the K to 3 space, and I love it. But the younger the minds, the more fun I seem to have.
Yeah. Definitely. They are definitely lovey little creatures. I have a 7-year-old grandson, so he's right there in that age range. So
they're a lot of fun.
So I know that in Canada, you guys maybe do things a little different with kindergarten. I heard something on another interview that you had done, something about they do 2 years in kindergarten. Is that correct?
Yeah. So where I am in Ontario, we have a 2-year kindergarten program. So ideally what happens is our students come to us and they stay with us for 2 years. It used to be called junior kindergarten and senior kindergarten. And since we moved into the full day model, it's now called year 1 and year 2. So our kindergartens come to us as young as 3, as long as they're turning 4 by the end of that calendar year. That's what everybody says when I tell them that. Yeah, we've had kids who, their birthdays are on December 31st. So as long as they turn 4 by December 31st of that year, they are welcome to come to school to start kindergarten. And they leave us after their second year, they leave us either having just turned 6 or turning 6 before the end of that year. So it's a huge, huge range of academic abilities and cognitive abilities and just general abilities in total. You'll have kids coming in at 3 at this, the same day as kids coming in who are almost 6. So
oh wow, so
huge range.
Yes,
definitely. Yeah. It was the biggest learning curve of my career was stepping into kindergarten, and it remains one of my most favorite places to be.
So you guys don't do like a pre-kindergarten with your 3 and 4s?
We not with our 3 and 4-year-olds. No, we have our provincial education system starts as long as they turn 4 by the end of that calendar year. Then they are welcome to begin kindergarten.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. It's probably, I would have trouble teaching like that wide of a range of abilities because, 3-year-olds are totally different than 6-year-olds. So.
Yeah. It's like I said, it remains the most challenging thing I've ever done in education. And, each year that I taught definitely got easier in terms of my ability to sort of understand, what they were going to be like when they showed up on that first day, just because I'd had more experience with it. But every mind is so, so, so different. So, what you may have had one year in our first year kindergartners could be something completely different from the following year.
Right.
So,
right.
But yeah. I love it. I can't lie.
Awesome. As I got older, I chose to go up in age on my kids that I was teaching too. And I actually ended in 6th grade, but I've taught everything from pre-K through high school. So definitely a wide range there too. So, all right. So besides making you even more cool than you already are, tell us what it's like to work with the Brian Aspinall at Codebreaker Inc.
You know what? It's amazing. What can I say? It's pretty, it's a pretty wicked place to be. So Brian and I met virtually a few years ago, just through social media. I'd been following his journey on social media for quite some time. He's a pretty epic educator in Canada. And I had seen a bunch of stuff that he had done, visits to classrooms and things that he was doing in his own classroom. And I was just in awe of all that he had accomplished, especially with technology. I am a huge advocate for technology integration in the classroom. I'm a giant computer nerd. So everything that he had done, I just thought was pretty fantastic. Mike, a gentleman, a mutual friend of ours, rather, had introduced us sort of in conversation. He mentioned my name to Brian. He had seen me at a conference that I was at. Brian reached out to me and asked if I wanted to write for his website, write a blog post for his website. So obviously totally jumped at the chance. And I wrote for his website. It was to that date, the biggest thing that had happened for me. I thought it was such an incredible experience to be able to not only to just, chit chat with him, but to be able to have that opportunity to have something that I write to get out to the audience that he reaches was pretty unreal for me. So I was super, super, super grateful. Once that blog post was published, he reached out to me a couple of months later, just through a DM on Twitter, and he had asked if I had ever considered writing a children's book. He was dipping into children's book publication at the time, and he had 2 books out, or 2 books on their way out. And he reached out, said, "Have you ever considered writing a children's book?" And I remember responding saying, I have, but I've never known how to start. And he responded with what I hold near and dear to my heart now forever is, "You just start." And I remember reading those 3 words and, so simple, 3 words, but yet so incredibly powerful. And I remember I was in my backyard at the time. It was July. Or it was June rather. I grabbed a pen and a piece of paper and I just started writing ideas down. I knew immediately what it was that I wanted to do, what I wanted to write about. I ran some ideas by him. He loved them and I just kind of went with it. So we had developed a working relationship as I was writing Gracie for those few months. And then in the following year, or actually this year, I guess, in the spring, he was looking at publishing another book, a leadership book by a gentleman by the name of Mike Hines, and the book is called Staying Grounded. And he had asked if I would consider editing the book for him. So I jumped at the chance. I got to meet Mike, who was an incredible person. He's a great author, fantastic leader. He's out in New York. And I got to read his book. So all of a sudden I was sort of doing something completely different. It started just as the pandemic here started to lock everything down. So I was sort of trapped at home. I was teaching during the day, and then I was reading and editing, through my lunch hour and before and after school. And as a result, Brian and I just sort of developed a friendship because we were working constantly together. And, after Staying Grounded started to happen, somebody else approached him and said, "Hey, I hear you're publishing. Can I, are you interested in my book?" And it just sort of kind of happened that way. It was really fluid. We work very, very well together. And next thing you know, it was 1 book and 2 books. And now, we're plus 20 under the Codebreaker name. So
wow, that was quick.
Yeah, it's been an incredible 9 months to today's the 8th. So as of the 12th, or as of the 13th, March 13th was when we say the world shut down for us. And that's the day we just decided to go for it. So, from there, we built a website, and Brian had a great social media following. I just kind of piggybacked on that, and we take care of all of our authors together. We work on social media. We got the website. Codebreaker Inc. itself, beyond publishing, we also do consulting, professional development, all that sort of stuff. So we just sort of really clicked. Our creative brains mesh really well together. And the ideas that I don't have, Brian has. What he has or what I have that he doesn't, it works really, really well together. We just sort of click, and it's been amazing. It's been an incredible learning experience too. If you had asked me, let's say 10 months ago, if this is anything that I thought I would ever be doing, it wouldn't have even been on my radar. I wouldn't have even known that this was an opportunity that existed. And
wow.
now I don't see life without Codebreaker.
Right.
It's what I do. It's who I am. I'm so incredibly proud of what we do, and what we stand for. And it's something that I love to do. It's become a little bit more logistically difficult as we've come back to school. I mean, in the summer, obviously I had all the time I wanted to. So once school started back, I had to kind of divide my time up, obviously have school. So my days typically start between 4:30 and 5, and I'll sit and, editing, and I'll often edit through my lunch hour if it's something that needs to be put out in a timely manner. So,
right.
And, I find that time to do that. And it's amazing. The people I've got to connect with, the personal things that I've learned from connecting with our authors are on another level. And it's just been crazy. And to be able to learn what I have from Brian for the business side of things, for social media, for our website development, and just, the interpersonal skills have been something that I could have never, ever, thought that I'd be here. I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah, he is like a super personable guy. Like, he reached out to me on Twitter. I posted something, or he may have posted something and I responded or something, and then he saw that I was doing Empowered Educator podcast, and so he kind of reached out to me, and I thought, that just doesn't happen very often.
Right.
Most of the time, anybody that's as well known as him, they don't reach out to you. You have to reach out to them, and then they might answer you. So, but definitely I've gotten to know him a little bit through Twitter also, and just chatting back and forth that way. And he just seems like a super down to earth, super real guy.
Yeah, he very much is. He very much is.
And hopefully we can get him on here very soon. We've been trying, but our schedules have kind of not meshed well here lately. So
yeah,
hopefully very soon. So tell me about Gracie.
So Gracie was my passion project brought to life, thanks to Brian. So Gracie started, like I said, over a conversation of, hey, have you ever considered writing a children's book? And I knew immediately what I wanted to write about. I knew it had to be about a little girl. I am a girl. I have a little girl. I knew it needed to be about technology. I am still very, very passionate, like I said, about the integration of technology. And I was at a point in my career where I found myself really needed to convince other people why it was so important, and why there were things we could do with technology that pencil and paper weren't going to cut it anymore.
Right.
So I just thought that for me, this just made the most sense. Gracie herself is based on her character is sort of a portrayal of 4 students that I'd had that year that really made a difference and impact on me.
So were they all girls?
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
so this is a collaboration between 4 boys and girls. Okay.
Yeah. So she is this, young student who is just sort of going to school because she has to go to school. And then her teacher introduces her to a robot named GoBot, and she teaches Gracie how to code. And through that, Gracie discovers this sort of world of learning that she didn't know existed. That basket of dinosaurs that, she would play with on the carpet now became her little imaginary world where she could code GoBot to travel through it. She was using, in the story, she uses her imagination to travel to space with GoBot. And there's a whole bunch of instances like that. And the story for me was really to have readers understand that, coding is so much more than just a robot and an iPad or a computer, that it's all of those other things that we're getting out of the technology that we're using. The technology is a tool, and what we're learning as a result, what our kids are learning as a result, is something that will help them be successful in anything that they do. And Gracie was born as a result of me wanting to show the world how important this type of learning is, especially for our students today.
Yeah. And, kids are so much more open to learning something like that. Like, even I'm pretty comfortable with technology, but coding kind of scares me a little bit, even as comfortable as I am. And so I feel like kids, they don't care. They're going to try, and they can be fearless, especially when it comes to that stuff. So, I totally agree. It's here, and they are embracing it big time. So
absolutely.
So where did the name Gracie come from?
So Gracie was originally named Ruby. I had picked the name Ruby because I'd read a story to the kids. I really liked the story. The character's name is Ruby. I thought I'd go with that. And then I had come to learn that Ruby is associated with coding in many other spaces. So I didn't want to use that. Brian had actually sent me a list, and he said, hey, why don't you pick a real life person to name Gracie after? And I remember he sent me this link to a website. It was 8 female pioneers in STEM. And I went through the list, and the only, I wanted to pick somebody that I hadn't heard of before. And so the first person on the list that I found was a lady by the name of Grace Hopper. And so Gracie is named after Grace Hopper, who was an admiral, in the US Navy. And she developed a coding language using English words. So up until then, coding was all binary, zeros and ones. And Grace Hopper really felt that we would be able to reach more people if she could turn that code into English language, something that people could understand. So she created a language. She was part of creating a language to code that people could understand, but also that computers could understand. So
yeah, well,
that's who Gracie is.
Definitely well thought out on that end of things. So
pretty epic.
Gracie is a pretty cool name now.
Right?
All right. So what inspired you to become an educator?
What inspired me to become an educator? Somebody asked me that question recently. I'm actually, I'm going to plug my friend Brandon. So Brandon Beck is, I met him through Codebreaker. He's one of our current authors, and the book he's writing is called Unlocking Unlimited Potential. And I say this not to try and sell his book or anything like that, but a big portion of his book is about your why. And he has one of the reflection areas that he has in the book is for us as educators to kind of go back to that why and wonder and reflect on why you became an educator, or maybe why you had, and if it's different now, why is it different? What is it now? And it really made me stop and think about why I became an educator. And I honestly couldn't think of anything other than I just really enjoyed teaching. I used to volunteer in schools when I could. When I was in high school, when I was in university, I had some spare time, I'd volunteer at the elementary school up the street. I just really enjoyed it. When I sort of did some more deep reflection, I had some teachers in my educational career that really, really made an impact on me as a student. And I think they are why I became a teacher. I wanted to be able to not pay it forward, but I wanted to be able to make other people feel the way I was made to be felt by these particular teachers. I had a teacher, Mr. Terry Marshall, was my grade 6 teacher. And then when he was just a phenomenal teacher, and I can't tell you what he taught me. I can't tell you, I could give you little clips of things I remember from 20 years ago, but to be honest, I just remember that he just made me feel like I wasn't a number, and he was
Yeah.
just a really, really good person. And he cared about us as students. He was kind, he was compassionate, he was empathetic. And I just remember really enjoying going to school that year. And then I had another educator, Mr. Nolan. He was my French teacher in grade 8. Mr. Brennan was my grade 11 chemistry teacher. He was amazing. And then, straight into university, Professor Carley was a professor that I had in my last year of university. And I mean, you're in university, you are a number in university. The numbers are just so big, you have to be a number.
Right,
and
right.
We weren't a number to him. So again, he gave me that same feeling that those other teachers had. And I just had always decided that I really enjoyed it. And to be honest, when I started university, I had no intentions of going into education. I didn't decide to go into education until the year I decided to go into education. When I started university, my path, I was headed to something to do with children. I was thinking maybe child psychology or some kind of social work, something like that. And then it just sort of changed from there. I changed those majors and I ended up moving into law. I enjoy learning and studying about our legal system.
So I should have contacted you during my law class. That was so strenuous.
Can't say I know much about it. I just sort of enjoy it. And, when I graduated, I decided, I really think I just want to be a teacher. So I applied for our B.Ed programs here and I just went for it. And I've always said to people, I was born to be a teacher, and I firmly believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. I started as a business major when I started college, and I was within 27 hours of graduating, and I'm like, I hate this. I hated all of it. And my best friend was in education. She was getting ready to graduate. And so I'd started college before her, and I was still going because I hated it so much, because it was not college that I hated. I just didn't like the business classes. But where I was at, we just didn't have a lot of opportunities or other options except for education. And I, at the time I was like, I don't know. I just always had been a business person. And so I had started subbing, and she was getting ready to graduate. And I'm like, I really just love the atmosphere of school, just being around the kids and stuff. And, I started having babies shortly after that. And it just was like, I don't know. I just went in one day. I'd already signed up for all my business classes, and I went in and I completely changed my major, dropped all those classes I had. We're talking like a week before the fall semester was getting ready to start, and I switched everything. I even had one of my teachers from the business classes. He called me and he was like telling me some stuff. I'm like, I forgot to tell you, I switched majors and I'll no longer ever be in your classes again. So he's like, oh, okay. So, and I have not regretted a day since then. Mm-hmm. You're right. If it's there, it's like a missionary. If you are meant to do that,
yep,
it is, you will know, and it is your passion. So I totally get
agree.
it. Totally get that. So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Where do I see myself in 5 years? That's always been a really hard question, because if you asked me 5 years ago, I didn't know that this opportunity existed. And 5 years before that, I wouldn't have known that 5 years ago opportunity even existed. I always thought that you walked into a school on your first day as a teacher and you left 25 some odd years later and retired.
Right.
I don't know why I thought that, but it's just sort of what I thought. And then I remember being in my very first school for 5 years. It was a tiny little school, and our numbers were getting smaller and smaller each year. They ended up closing the school. And I was shocked, because it didn't compute to me. What do you mean there's closing a school? I'm just supposed to be here for another 20 years.
Right.
So that very first forced change all of a sudden sort of opened my eyes to different spaces and different learning opportunities. So moving to my new school, I met new people who had new strengths, and I met new challenges. And then all of a sudden I started getting really interested in technology in the classroom. And then I sort of at that point learned about other opportunities within my school board involving technology. things that I didn't even know existed. So I started moving sort of toward that direction. And then I ended up switching schools. And I moved into kindergarten, which was something that I decided, okay, I'm gonna stick this out for a while, switch schools so I could start kindergarten in a new community. And then the technology part of me just sort of blew up, and I started doing a whole lot more with technology, and I was putting it out on social media. And then I started going to conferences. And then from there, all of a sudden I started presenting at conferences, again, something that I would have never thought was going to happen.
Right.
And then from presenting at conferences, I met Brian, and, here we are just over a year later. So I don't know where I see myself in 5 years, only because I don't know what exists in 5 years.
Right.
I can tell you that I don't stand still. I don't stand still. I want to continue the Gracie series. That is something. So we're on book 3 by now. I'd like to write my own leadership book, is something that I'd like to do. And I would really like to, I want to share Gracie in large audiences. So I'm very grateful I get to be a keynote speaker at the BITE conference in Manitoba in February. And that's something that I'd like to continue to do, is share that message of Gracie and share the idea that, the integration of technology and coding in our programs for our youngest learners is so important. So where am I going to be in 5 years? I don't know. What do I want to accomplish between now and 5 years from now? That I do know. I do know. And the list will just continue to grow as new opportunities arise.
So do you see yourself staying in the classroom till that 25-year mark, or do you see yourself moving into leadership position? And I don't know how it works in Canada. I know here, you take your classes and you move in, when you're ready, and, as long as you pass the test. So do you see yourself ever doing that, or do you see yourself maybe just moving into more of just the consulting end of things, or?
I don't know. I always say never to sit here and say, yes, I'm going to be an administrator, or no, I'm not going to be an administrator. I don't have that answer yet.
Yeah.
I don't have that answer yet. Again, I used to have those answers, and then I just discovered that more opportunities open up that I didn't know existed. And then all of a sudden my path just completely veers in a different direction. So
yes.
There's, like I said, my goal is to continue writing. My goal is to continue consulting. And, I love the classroom and I love what I do. There are opportunities within my school board to, do some consulting and stuff, but it would pull you out of the classroom. So when those opportunities arose, it wasn't something that I was interested in, only because I didn't feel like I was ready to leave yet. Not that I wasn't ready for that position. I wasn't finished what I was doing now. So
I totally understand. And God has a great way of putting things in front of you that you didn't know he was going to put in front of you. So I have a lot of things that he has put in front of me that I totally never expected. A podcast being one of those. So I love listening to podcasts, and I was like, I'm not ever going to do that. Yeah. Well, look at this. I am. So so I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So what is one techno tool that you would recommend? Like maybe to someone who they're really interested in technology, they're not super savvy with technology yet. What's something that you would recommend that they start with?
So if I'm going to look at a piece of technology, like if you're looking at starting, I think it would really depend on where you are in your journey. If you're looking for something, say coding, for example, I really like any of the entry level robots that, the mouse, I think it's MouseBot is what it's called. Bbot is something that we use in our school board. So I have quite a few of those. If you're looking at that entry level into coding for yourself or for your younger students, that's something that we use all the time. What I love about Bbot is that there's also Terrapin, which is the company that makes them. And I'm not plugging, I'm not getting anything for free or anything of the sort.
Right.
I'm speaking solely from experience now, having taught our youngest learners in person and online. What I love about Bbot is that Terrapin has a Bbot emulator. So you can just go to their website, and if you're teaching online or hybrid, you have the access to the bot, and it looks exactly the same, and it works exactly the same. It functions the same. And it's great for your online learners can have the exact same program that your face-to-face learners have in terms of the robot. And it's so, I don't want to say simple, because I don't think that's fair, but it's very, it's not intimidating. It's not an intimidating piece of,
user-friendly.
Yes, very, very user-friendly. The kids buy into it immediately. It's this cute little, robot, looks like a bee. And it's just by pushing buttons is how they make it work. And so
good for your grade levels, like
absolutely
kindergarten, first grade.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I even use it up to grade 2 and up to grade 3. Eventually in grade 3, it's going to get pretty old because it will be very simplistic for their abilities.
Right.
And to be honest, many of the grade 1s that I teach have now been using Bbot for 2 years, because I taught them in kindergarten the last couple of years. So even for them, they're looking for more of a challenge.
Right.
But if you're talking entry level, that's definitely something that I would recommend for any classroom.
Okay, awesome. So give a piece of advice to new teachers coming into education during this unprecedented time. It's pretty tough. And so, I started a new job at a district that I've never, ever been in. And there's some new people here, and they kind of, they've struggled. Even some of the seasoned teachers are struggling. So what kind of advice could you give to them?
So I can be very honest and transparent. We moved into hybrid learning, and it has been the most difficult thing that I've ever encountered as an educator. I find the hybrid piece very, very challenging for me, because I feel like I'm required to do 2 very, very different things: teach face-to-face and teach online at the exact same time.
Yes.
And I haven't mastered that yet, and I haven't met anybody who has mastered it yet.
Right.
So I'm doing my best, and for the first couple of weeks, it took an absolute toll. Like, I can be honest and tell you, there was not a day for the first 2 weeks that this was happening that I wasn't sitting in my car by 3:45, 4 o'clock sobbing, because it was just such a difficult day. And there were days where I didn't want to get out of bed to go to work, because it was just so incredibly challenging.
Yes.
I eventually had to accept that, and I had to let a lot of things go. There was a lot of things that I wasn't able to do, just because this type of learning style, or rather teaching style, this model of education doesn't allow for it in times like this. All of the things that I used to do were things that we can't now do, that we can't share the things that we were sharing. We can't sit certain ways to collaborate. And I found that to be very, very difficult. With time and patience for myself and grace, I was able to accept it, come to terms with it, and sort of find ways around it. I haven't been able to find a way around everything. I've just come to accept that it is what it is.
Yes.
And so, it was hard for me. Somebody had asked me that question before, what advice do you have for teachers right now? And I honestly said, I don't have any advice, because I'm not coping. I'm struggling. I need the advice. And when I sat and really thought about it, I kind of went right back to my why. And my why are these kids. Why am I here? For them. So my day is spent doing, my day is spent doing everything for them. And while it may look chaotic when you're standing in my doorway, it may look trivial if you don't know the ins and outs of what I'm putting out there. I know that it's important for them. I know that it's what they need. And I'm confident in that. So you'd come to realize that the advice that I would give anybody who's struggling right now, not necessarily new teachers, because, hey, we're all new teachers as of September.
Right.
Nobody's ever done this before,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
And, I could have come into this classroom in a regular year and planned with my eyes closed for the rest of the month, just because experience allows that to happen.
Right.
We can't do that anymore. And so the advice that I would give any teacher struggling right now is, and it sounds so hokey, but honestly, believe in what you do for the better. And we're not going to reach every kid, but you're going to reach one kid, and that is your purpose.
Yes.
And it's one of the stories that I live by in teaching is the starfish story. And if you're not familiar with it, the starfish story, there's a number of different versions of it, but essentially there is a little girl or boy on a beach. And this man is walking down the beach. He sees a shadow appears to be dancing. And when he gets closer to the shadow, he sees that it's a little girl or boy. And that little person is picking up starfish and throwing them back into the ocean. And the man says, "What are you doing?" And the child says, I'm putting starfish back in the ocean because the tide has gone out. And the man says, but there's hundreds of starfish. And there's only one of you. You can't possibly make a difference. And the little girl picks up a starfish and throws it back in the ocean and says, but I made a difference for that one.
Yes.
And that is something that I reflect on. And that is a piece that I try and take home every day. If I have a list of 100 things I want to accomplish, on most days, maybe I accomplish 2 of those things, but in those 2 things, I've made a difference for that one little starfish. And that is where your focus has to be, on that one starfish.
Yeah. What a great way of looking at it. Jake Miller from Educational Duct Tape, he mentioned a few episodes ago that he gives himself grace. And right now, everybody needs to give themselves grace because like you said, this is new to everybody. And, even on a great day in a regular classroom with no COVID, things happen and you would give yourself grace on those days. So why is this any different? Just because this is much harder for everyone.
Yeah, it really
and
is.
no one is alone in this. So yeah, give yourself grace and rely on your peeps. Definitely.
Yep.
So. All right. Well, Daphne, it has been wonderful having you on today. And I am super thankful that you agreed to come on and be my first guest. And so is there anything you want to leave the podcast, our listeners with?
What do I want to leave with? Well, actually, if I might, the 3rd Gracie book is coming out any day now. I'm super excited for that. The second in the series is called What Happens When I Learn to Code. And that is a book that Brian and I actually put out together this past summer. And it's sort of a companion guide to the first Gracie. Talks about all of the soft skills that kids learn when they learn to code. And then the 3rd book coming out any day now is called Gracie the Maker. And Gracie the Maker is about Gracie and her new classmate, Edie. And together they have to figure out a way to help their class pet, which happens to be a tortoise.
Oh, well, imagine that.
So a little bit of STEM. And they got to work together to create a little machine to help feed their tortoise. And that comes out any day now. So I'm really, really looking forward to that.
Yeah, super exciting. And Gracie is super cute. And did I see on your book that you are the illustrator also?
So I illustrated the 2nd book.
Okay.
Yes. So I illustrated What Happens When I Learn to Code. And that illustration was based on the illustrator from the original series, or the original book, rather. Her name is Alexandra Massey. She's amazing. She illustrated the first Gracie, and she's illustrated this 3rd one. The 2nd one I illustrated based on her drawings and her sketches.
Well,
so,
that's pretty cool. I can't draw anything hardly. So kudos to you for being artistic as well as techno savvy.
Thank you.
So, all right. Well, you have a great evening. Again, thank you so much for coming on. And as soon as I get things worked out, I will send you a copy and let you hear.
Amazing.
Make sure that it's okay for the public. So
yes, amazing.
All right. You have a great night. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was great to meet you, Melinda.
Yeah. Nice to talk to you in person, sort of.
Yes.
Face to face, at least.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks.
All right, Melinda. Have a great night. Thank you.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you for joining me today on Empowered Educator. All of the information and links from today's podcast will be on my website, empowerededucator.com. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. Remember, professional learning should be sustainable, applicable, active, and targeted. So power up for personalized professional learning to go.